Welcome to Muskegon Rising, a community service project of the Muskegon Rotary Club. Our purpose is to create lasting positive change. We've been doing that here since 1916. So, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. DJ Hilson here again behind the microphone for Muskegon Rising. It's another great day to be here, and I have the privilege and pleasure of interviewing today Jackie Halberg, who is the Executive Director of Muskegon County's own Mediation and Restorative Services. Hello, Jackie.
Hello, DJ. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Let's start out, shall we, talk a little bit about yourself. I know that's hard for you to do.
I know, right?
But talk a little bit about yourself, sort of your background, and what led you to become the Executive Director of Mediation Restorative Services.
I love that. Thank you, DJ. So I am a lifelong resident of Muskegon County. I have always been passionate about making the world a safer place, happier place. I got into social work for my bachelor's degree and thought I could save the world with a bachelor's degree, which you can't do. So went on for my master's and found a lot of great things that I could do in the community. But when I went to Mediation and Restorative Services, you know, we do mediation there and we do a lot of great things, but restorative justice called my name. It was in my master's degree internship that I started there. And I worked there for about 14 years. And then I went off to do some elementary school counseling, and I worked at a women's shelter, and I worked for the City of Muskegon Police Department. And then the position for director opened back up. And I'm like, my heart and soul has always been in making the world safer in restorative justice. And it was such a good fit to come back and see some of the programs I had started almost 20 years prior, still in existence, some that needed to be created, and some that it was time for them to go away. So it's been a really cool experience for me.
Well, listen, I mean, obviously, and for folks that may not know, this agency, even though it has had morphed in some name changes over time, how long has it been here in Muskegon County?
It's been 30 years as of July of 2024. So we are going into our 31st year, and we have so much more to do in this community. And we also service more than Muskegon. We also service Oceana, Mason, and Manistee. But our heart and soul is in Muskegon with our restorative work, with our reentry work. And we would love to grow it in more communities as well.
So I want to break down there are a couple of avenues that the agency offers, and I'm gonna ask questions in the different, I'll say, buckets, if that's okay with you, so as not to do any smoke and mirrors with you. But ultimately, let's talk a little bit about mediation. First and foremost, maybe explain to people who may not know what that is. What is mediation?
Yeah. Mediation is an opportunity to help people resolve conflict or differences. It's really about learning communication tools with somebody that maybe you don't like or maybe you don't agree with anymore. We can provide mediation in an opportunity where our trained community volunteers, and we're talking extensive training, DJ. It's not just somebody that comes in for an hour, says they're a mediator. It's actually state-mandated training to help people navigate those tough topics. It could be about parenting time. It could be about a property dispute or maybe a landlord-tenant situation. Maybe it's a parent-child disagreeing and their kids aren't going to school anymore and they need to help resolve that. So when it's tough, when it's something that people are starting to question their relationship with somebody, or somebody owes them money, or somebody is trying to cause them any kind of discomfort or stress, mediation can be available. We help businesses. We help employee disputes. There's so many things that mediation can resolve. And so many people tell us, DJ, they wish they knew about mediation before they contacted attorneys, before they called the police, before they spent sometimes years angry with this person or went without their payment for something. And so mediation is available for almost any situation. We are super low cost. We can work in tandem with the courts or attorneys, or we can work prior to that. But it's something that's available and so underutilized in our community.
So I know, obviously, mediations themselves, the topics and the things that are discussed are confidential.
Absolutely.
But can you just describe, in general, when two parties come in and they have a dispute that needs to be mediated, what's the process? What happens in that room? Yeah, so
there's a whole training curriculum that goes through on how you start the mediation, how you honor that confidentiality, and how you give the expectations of what's the room. So you and I are talking here like friends, it's nice and normal communication. When you're working with one or two people that are really or more that are not happy with each other, it's a lot different discussion. So the mediators set the tone for the room. They go over some of the instructions in terms of who's going to speak first and what happens when they're speaking, because a lot of times disagreements happen because we haven't listened to each other. We're over talking them. We're waiting to defend ourselves instead of listen to the reason that there's a disagreement. So our mediators are not taking preference. They are not like an arbitrator where they're going to actually fix the ultimate decision at the end. They're going to listen to everybody and help the other party listen to each other while that other party is talking. So DJ and I, if you and I were having a disagreement, the mediators would be like, DJ, go ahead and let us know why you think we're here today. And then while you were talking, I might write down and be like, that's not why we're here. I can't believe he said that, or I think he's lying. And then the mediators would turn towards me and say, now, Jackie, it's your turn. DJ, please sit there and listen, and then you can have a chance to talk afterwards. So that's what we kind of start off talking about. Why are we even here? And then we move towards what would you like to see happen? Where you might want all this money from me. And I'm like, yeah, first he needs to fix this in my house before I give him another cent. So it really depends on how to move that discussion forward so that both parties are hopefully comfortable with the decision, happy with the decision, maybe vindicated, whatever their term is. We want it to be good for everybody. But it's not the mediator's mediation. It's the party's mediation. So we are not going to force them to agree. We're not going to be like, oh, DJ's totally right and Jackie's not, or vice versa, because it's important that they resolve what they want. And at the end of the mediation, if they don't want to continue and resolve it, that's okay. They can come back later, or they can go through the courts, or they can just go about their day without a resolution. So it's really up to the parties what they walk into the room ready to do and how they honor the mediation process if things will get resolved.
You know, as a lawyer, this sounds like being in court, but why is it not like being in court?
Yeah. So I am very lucky that I'm not at the courthouse as often as you, but in courts, there are very much time-limited situations, and it's not about necessarily talking about all the facts you see and everything. It's about getting your point across, maybe having your attorney doing all the speaking. But to really resolve conflict, the parties have to talk. They have to talk about what works for them, what hasn't worked for them, and what they want to see. The cool thing about our mediators, and when they sign up for these sessions, they know it could go 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours. There may be a second or third session. Our opportunity isn't to rush the situation or be the ones that decide how it's going to end or be resolved. So that's the huge difference. Also, there's a little bit of a financial difference. So we are a nonprofit, which means we do not have exorbitant prices. However, we do need to keep our lights on and all those kind of things. So there's a minor charge for a few of our services, but it's an opportunity to get community members back to agreeing so they don't want that conflict. So many times conflict leads to crime or people breaking up families or no longer wanting to talk to people. And we're hoping mediation can resolve that.
So before I move to the next bucket here, which is, I think, where a lot of your passion lies, could you just describe, if people are listening to this saying, you know, I've got hours in my day that I need to fill, or this sounds really interesting. Do I need to have a master's degree in social work to do this? How do I become a mediator?
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking that, because we are always looking for volunteer mediators. You can have any kind of background other than a few different criminal aspects that may weed you out, and that's a state mandate. You do have to be over 18 to volunteer with us, but you have to be willing to want to listen and help guide people to speak what they want in mediation. You can't come in saying, I want to be the judge for a day. I want to try to tell you what to do. That kind of mindset is not appropriate for a volunteer. But those that care about helping people learn how to communicate, resolving their conflicts, those are the qualities we want. So we have people that have been school teachers and bankers and attorneys and just about every background. We've had people that have never worked in an office space, that have never worked in a courthouse. And that's okay. We have college students. We have people that are retired. So your background doesn't determine whether you'd be a successful mediator. It's your personality and your own communication style.
So what just so folks understand the commitment, not necessarily, I mean, you've talked about mediations kind of have a life of their own.
Yes.
And they can be as long or as short as the parties want them to be. But if I'm going to be the person, the mediator, sort of facilitating that conversation, what kind of time do I have to put in order to get to that spot?
Yes, to be a mediator with us, the state has a mandate on what the training is. So the biggest time that volunteers have is that training module before they actually can become a mediator. It's either a 40 to 48 hour commitment, and then they actually observe other mediators for up to 10 hours. After that, then we do what's called co-mediating. So if you're like, I want to do this, I want to volunteer to be a mediator, but I'm nervous being the only one in the room with two people that are not happy with each other, you're actually going to get paired up with somebody that's been mediating for quite some time. And so we call that co-mediation. So what we do is once you've been through that process, then our case managers will actually screen the cases, find out if there's any time limits that those parties have. Are they only able to mediate for an hour, for up to 3 hours? And then we contact our mediators to say, we have this kind of a case available, and they can only mediate for this long, or they don't have a time limit. They really wanted to resolve this, so it could go a little longer. And if that meets your needs and it fits in your schedule, then you would accept that case. We don't force mediators to sign up for a certain amount of mediations. We do ask them to be active. So that would be at least maybe 1 to 2 mediations a month if possible. But we are getting a lot more cases these days. So if we have people that have more time and interest, we love them to be more active. But we know some people move around during the different weather seasons in Michigan. We know that some people have different family or work obligations. So we're super flexible with working with their schedules.
So to me, even if you did quarter time or part-time mediation, the I'll say limited investment of your time, so that 40 to 48 hours, it sounds to me like it develops a lifelong skill. Because last I heard, we do a lot of communicating in our society. Can you just describe maybe some of that side benefit of the skill that you develop and learn and maybe sort of enhance by going through this training? You
actually, when you're looking through mediator training and the paperwork and role playing means you practice being a mediator, you realize how much we tend to want to talk instead of listen to other people, even in our own family, in our own office environment. And it gives you an opportunity to learn how to pause. And that's where we tend to learn. Because if you can pause and your brain just takes that break to say, okay, now I'm ready to hear what he wants to say to me, what she's going to talk about. It gives you that skill to go back. And if you have something with a sister or a neighbor and they're just starting to be very angry or they're threatening or something, you learn that's probably not the time to really communicate with them. So you listen and you just kind of wait until they're at a spot that you can do. I have the pleasure to say that we have some mediators that have been mediating for over 20 years with us, DJ. They find that not only does it help them personally, but they can see their impact on the community. When you have families that will call us and say, I know this person won't mediate with me, but I'm so sick of screaming at them and they won't listen. And they come to mediation and within about 2 hours, they're actually like laughing and talking with this person again. Now, that doesn't happen in every situation, and we can't wave a magic wand and make everybody get along, but it opens up that dialogue. And so many times that's what leads to the conflict is that I've closed that door. I don't want to listen to you anymore. I don't trust what you're going to say. And mediation can help resolve that in terms of breaking down some of those communication barriers. And our mediators really thrive on that because even if they can't say that the parties agreed exactly, they usually made some progress in their communication. And that's stuff that stays with those people forever as well, even if they didn't have the training themselves.
Yeah, I mean, listen, communication will never go away, regardless of how technology, expounds on it. Communication will never go away. So this, obviously, if folks are listening to this and it's starting to spark an interest, how best to get a hold of the center or yourself?
Yeah, well, funny you mention that because one of the reasons there are communication issues is because people are on technology so much. They don't look at each other, but you can reach us through technology. You can call us directly at 727-6001 in the 231 area code, but you can also go to our website, which is mediatewestmichigan.com. And there's actually a spot that you can email us directly. You can stop in our office, which is located in downtown Muskegon at 20 West Muskegon Avenue. And you can just see if this is going to be appropriate for you. You can say, hey, I might want to volunteer or I might want to mediate a situation. And our case managers are amazing. They are wonderful. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to yell at you. They're going to let you know if this is appropriate and what they need to do to be able to reach out to that other party. So contacting us directly is not going to be like, I'm not going to tell DJ that you called us. I'm not going to tell your boss. I'm not going to tell your kids that you called us. It's all confidential, and you just have to be willing to try to decide if this is right for you.
Fantastic. Well, let's shift gears to the restorative justice side of this. Talk a little bit about the restorative justice angle that this center is involved and offers.
Yeah. So in the beginning of our agency, we started with just minor situations in terms of those minor conflicts between neighbors or family or employers. When the courts and the community started realizing how powerful that was, they started learning about this term restorative justice, which means it's a little different than two people just disagreeing. It usually means there's been a criminal act or some kind of behavioral impact that somebody did on somebody else. And what would happen is traditionally, it was very punitive. Either, yes, you got resolution, or no, we're not going to do anything. Or this person is going to court, but you as the person that might have been harmed or victimized, you just got to deal with it anyways. Restorative justice really aimed at working with the courts and the police and the nonprofit agencies and the mediation centers to say, how can we give voice to what happened, become accountable for the person that actually committed that harm or behavior issue, find out if they're willing to help repair that harm, because if they're not, if they're either lying about what happened, they're not appropriate, or they're still mad at the person they harmed, then we're not even going to that next step. But if they're like, yes, I really did this, I do feel bad, I want to make it up, or I want to apologize, then it's appropriate to move to that next step in restorative justice, which is called repairing the harm. And that means we would actually reach out to the victim or the person or family in business maybe that was impacted and say, hey, we're working with this person that committed this crime against you, or they broke your window, they stole from you, they beat up your child. Do you want to have a mediated dialogue, which we call victim offender mediation, and help have a voice in what happens? And some people are absolutely against that. I don't ever want to see that person again. I don't want to talk to them. I don't have time, or everything is okay now. And other people are like, I can do that. I can let them know how that hurt me, how I haven't slept at night, how I maybe had to go get a guard dog or buy a gun or get 3 extra locks on my house because I'm afraid you're going to come back. And that brings that communication element back together, where if I harmed you, DJ, I might not know how you were truly impacted. Where if I harmed somebody else, they might be willing to tell me right there. So I'm not going to change my behavior necessarily if I don't realize the impact of what that behavior was. And that can be good and bad behavior. You know, if you're doing great stuff and you're getting pats on the back all the time and people are saying you're doing great, you tend to do more good stuff. But if you do something that's harmful and you really don't care how that person was harmed, or you don't know how it impacted them, why would you necessarily change your behavior and not do that again? So restorative justice really aims at that accountability, repairing the harm, and then really finding out a way to learn competencies and ways to not do this again. Because if you were stealing because your family does not have a lot of food, which that sometimes does happen, we help them educate themselves about food pantries and all the cool resources different communities have to help that. Now, if you did a behavior to hurt somebody because you were just mad at them or they looked at you wrong, that's a little different discussion, and you may be referred to some different opportunities on top of the mediation process, but it's something that the families and the participants agree to, and they want to learn this. And of course, if it's court ordered, we're going to let the courts know. This is not something that we're saying never have a case go to court. We're not saying we are the only places to resolve stuff. We are part of that process, because in our community, when you truly give a voice to what happened, you can move beyond that. You can change who you are. And that's why the restorative justice work we do is so impactful, DJ. And it's been around for so long here in Muskegon County. It's been a little over 20 years now, but people still don't understand it's an option, or they don't realize the impact it has. I have people, because I've been doing this so long, I've actually had people that are now adults that are like, I did that thing with your agency when I was a kid, and I never got in trouble again. Or, oh my gosh, I was victimized and you let us go through this process, and I was scared to go to school until I talked to that other kid in mediation, and now we get along, or now they don't bother me anymore. That's the power of restorative justice, but it's also that power of communication and treating other humans with kindness, no matter the reason that you came to the mediation center. Now,
I know you've been, not personally, but you've been involved in court cases and systems, and you've seen, I'll say the traditional methods of accountability when it comes to commit the crime, convicted, sentence, even in certain circumstances where victims of a particular crime have the opportunity to allocute before the court passes sentence. Can you compare that model to the effectiveness and impact of the victim-offender mediation that you just described?
It's really contingent on the party. So again, if you have somebody that is denying what they did, they're so angry at the victim, or they're possibly threatening to do it again, mediation is not the option. Restorative justice is not the opportunity now, but it might be down the road. Now, the cool thing about our mediation center, which a lot of people and possibly some in the courts don't even realize, is even if that person might not be appropriate to meet with the victim at this time, we will still do some of that accountability work ahead of time with that person to see how can we help them learn about the impact of their crime. Because just because they might not be appropriate to meet with that person, they are still out in our society. Unless they're going to be sent away for a very long time, they are still going to be walking through the same streets and the same doors that all of us are doing, including possibly that victim that they already hurt. So we do some of that behind the scenes work to try to help them just see how they can become someone that sees things a little differently. Now, that's not going to work all the time. Sometimes we have families that are very resistant and they're trying to protect their child, or if they're the adult that committed the crime, they are still very defensive. They're trying to deny and to blame. And we don't move forward with blame. If they're blaming the cop that pulled them over, if they're blaming this person that this is the only reason they did, that's not to the point of having them meet with somebody and talk about what happened. However, we still have victims that will say, I don't even care if they're lying about it. I want them to sit there and listen to the impact it had on me. So we do a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that the person that was victimized is going to be safe and not hurt in the process again, and that person that did the harm is going to be safe as well. Now, the beautiful thing is now we can do a lot of things virtually. So if we do have a little concern that there might be a little extra anger or there could be additional threats, we're going to make sure it's done virtually. But the beauty is in mediation, when people realize that we're still humans, no matter what side of the courtroom we're on or what side of the crime we're on, it reduces some of that you did it, I did it type of a thing, and reminds people that we're all humans and we can work together to resolve this. Now, if I was in the court system and I was just traditionally given a sentence and not had an opportunity to say that I'm sorry to that person, or maybe I was even told I wasn't allowed to talk to that person again, I might not be able to figure out in my own brain how I truly impacted them. And I may not change my behavior because, well, apparently it wasn't that big of a deal, right? I'm going to just get this kind of a sentence or a slap on the wrist sometimes, or maybe it's even a long-term sentence, but I haven't had that chance to humanize the situation. And for victims, unfortunately, I've been a victim of crime, DJ, and I've never been able to face the person that did some pretty nasty stuff. And it's like, I still think about that. What would I say to that person? Have they done that to somebody else? Would they do it again? Could my voice have prevented them? And so I don't want people to feel that they've given up that opportunity, that they just get to say, I just want the courts to deal with it. Because the courts are amazing. They can do some great things for victims. However, they don't go home with you at night and live inside your brain and say how they want to be able to communicate and let people know what impact that had. So we are available for victims of crime to process their thoughts. We cannot advocate for the courts. We cannot try to say, oh, you better call the police or this. We are not going to give legal advice through mediation, but we can always listen. And we do at times offer different support services. So if that's something that maybe you're not comfortable going through the mediation process, going through the restorative justice work, but you still want somebody to listen to you, that might be an opportunity to reach out to us to see if that's something we can help you just talk about the situation.
Well, as I've often said, working in the court system now for over 25 years and sitting across the table from those folks that have been victimized by all sorts of crime.
Yeah.
Mediation, victim offender mediation can answer the questions that I can't. And so to me, it's that power, like you said, still holds people accountable.
Yes.
But you get to answer those questions. The victims get to have answers to those questions.
Yes.
That I can't answer.
Yeah. The two biggest questions we get from those that have been victimized is, why did you do it to me? And are you going to do it again? And like you said, you and I can't come up with those answers. And even if we wanted to say, you're never going to have this hurt happen again, we can't guarantee that. But the person that did it has the right to say, I did it because I did it and I'm going to do it again, or I'm not going to do it again, or this is what I need to not do it again, or this is what I'm going to do to learn so I'm not hurting you again. And you can't just make that up. You really can't make it up.
All right. again, it's an area that I think a lot of people shy away from, because you hear restorative justice and it sounds very touchy-feely. I often get, well, that's soft on crime.
It's not.
And you and I kind of speak with one voice here. It's not soft, it's smart on crime. And so appreciate you and Mediation Restorative Services for those things that you offer, because not only does our criminal justice system utilize it, my office personally utilizes it. And so thank you for having that opportunity. Last bucket I want to have you talk about is exit. And the role, certainly the role that mediation plays, but also the role that exit plays in our community.
Oh, absolutely. So when you hear exit, people have all kinds of different thoughts on that, but exit is a local jail reentry program. So across the nation, the term reentry has really surfaced as kind of a buzzword in criminal justice. Usually people think of reentry as those that have been incarcerated in a prison system coming back to the community, and what can you do to ensure they're not going to commit another crime and that they're going to have all their needs met so they can be safe. Well, Muskegon flipped that switch about 10 years ago, actually, and they said there's a lot of other prison reentry programming. What about the jail reentry? Those that possibly committed a crime, especially if it's a felony situation that's could be either ordered to jail time or prison time. What if we give them an opportunity to have different life skills and really learn education, ways to increase their education, whether it's through training or through getting a GED or a diploma, and their educational experience? There's a lot of people that have been in our jails that have never had a real job where they've had to talk to a boss and they've had employees and they've had to show up on time. And our program is really designed to reduce the barriers that people that have now had a felony record in our community have had time in jail, possibly away from their families, to learn new skills, again, DJ, to hopefully not commit those behaviors again. Our court systems in our jails and our prisons have too many people in them. And it all stems back to their behaviors. And how can we help change the mindset that there's other opportunities out there? And just because you grew up on a certain street, because you had a certain parent or non-parent, just because you had a certain type of education does not mean that you should not be making safe decisions for you and your family. So the exit program is unique. We don't do this throughout the state. We don't do this throughout the country. We are fortunate to have just an amazing leadership team, including our prosecutor and our sheriff, that said the programming we do is so valuable that people that are currently housed in jail or recently in jail actually get to leave the jail, do day programming Monday through Friday, get all these services wrapped around them, see what they're willing to bring to the table to see if they are ready for release in a different capacity instead of having more and more incarceration going on. So it is intense work, DJ. I'm not going to lie. Every single human is unique. And I think in the traditional court system, in the traditional jail and prison systems, it was always, no matter what your crime is, you're treated this way in the jail because you deserve to be here. In the prison, you deserve to be here. We're saying you're here doing your sentence, you're doing your kind of give back to the community, you're doing your incarceration time. But while you're doing that, what else can you learn? What else can you talk to us about that are going to be barriers for you that might not be barriers for me after I get out of jail? So we really try to work uniquely with people while giving them all these tools. We get people in our program. We have instructors from Muskegon Community College that come in, and we'll have guys that are like, I never thought I'd talk to somebody that does college work. I never thought I'd go into a college building. I never thought I was welcome there or that was for me. And they're finding that they are just as worthy as other humans. And that's what it's all about. It's what it's all about. So it's pretty powerful. It's exciting. It is something we could not do without the community and state support in this program. We can't just go, hey, bring this person from the jail to our office. It's a very intense programming. Everybody is screened. It is something that is just so impactful, DJ. I just can't even say how many lives have been changed through this. Now, again, it's not a magic wand that's going to make everybody make good decisions, but at least they can say, I know the impact that I could have if I stop making these kind of decisions versus if I continue doing this.
Yeah, look, as you know, that is very near and dear to my heart. And I just can't thank yourself, the staff members over there at that program, for all the hard work that really nobody sees, right? I mean, nobody sees that.
Yeah.
And the gentlemen that have gone through that program that have become success stories owe a little bit of that to the hard work and dedication of that staff. So thank you for continuing to fight and be passionate about that. Because again, to me, it's a smart on crime approach. Yes. It's providing the tools so that folks have something other than the streets or criminality to turn to and say, I got nothing else, but I know this really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you acknowledging that, because it's not easy work. It's not like you're just going in and every day is going to be normal. You don't know when a crisis is going to develop. You don't know what happened to one of the people while they were in jail, and they might have gotten a phone call the night before that set them off in a different capacity, or somebody has told them they're not worthy or they don't deserve something. And being able to flip that switch empowers people to make decisions that are good for not only them, but possibly their family. Maybe they have children. Muskegon is tough in terms of generational incarceration, DJ. It seems like some of the families that their dad and their granny and their aunt and their cousins went to prison or jail, it trickles down and their younger people are doing that. We've got to break that cycle. And it's not that we have all the answers. It's not that the courts have all the answers. It's giving individuals opportunities for hope that they can have a different lifestyle. And it doesn't mean it might be better on a certain street or in a different town, but it matters that you have faith in yourself that you can move forward. And if nobody's ever given you the tools to say, you deserve to get a job, you deserve to go to college if you want to, you deserve to do these kind of cool things, how would they know anything different? How would they know?
Well, this has been fascinating as I anticipated. So thank you, Jackie, for being here today and in describing really the different facets of what Mediation Restorative Services brings to Muskegon County, as well as the other counties that you serve, but certainly to Muskegon County. So thank you for that and your dedication to that agency and the spirit behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool because so many people don't know about us until sometimes the worst time of their life. And we want people to learn that it's okay to either volunteer, to donate, to come learn more about us. Now, we're not just looking for volunteer mediators. We are doing mentoring with our exit guys, so the guys through that program. And we're trying to start a youth mentoring program for kids that are involved in the court system, because it takes a village to help us learn different behaviors. It's not just, go to a class for 30 minutes and my life is going to be different. So there are so many ways to get involved with us to help make a difference and actually have you, as another human in our town, see the reduction of crime and violence by volunteering with us. So I'm excited for this opportunity. I'm so excited that the Rotary promotes agencies and they support and they know the value of these kind of services. So thank you so much for taking this time as well.
So before we close, one more time, how do folks get a hold of Mediation Restorative Services?
Yes, we are right here in Muskegon, but we're available through any kind of website or phone call, 231-727-6001. You can stop by our office in downtown Muskegon, 20 West Muskegon, and we're right across from the downtown Burger King, so it's super easy to find. And our website is mediatewestmichigan.com. There's a great place to just do a contact us, and everything will be confidential and you'll be responded to as soon as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jackie, for the time today, and look forward to seeing continuing success.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for today's program, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you gained some perspective and knowledge of another incredible service that is offered here in Muskegon County. And certainly, if you have any interest in working with youth, the formerly incarcerated, mediating disputes, please reach out to Mediation Restorative Services. Your services will be greatly needed and well received. For that, this is Muskegon Rising. I'm DJ Hilson, and again, this program doesn't happen without the ingenuity of Mr. Mike Vogus.